Good morning. This is March 17th, 2014. I'll be reading from A Course in Miracles, and I'll be reading lesson number 86. This course is so personal. It meets each of us, meets you, meets me, exactly at our willing point, exactly where we can hear it, where I can hear it. This book has morphed many times in my experience, my relationship with it. It's written by a mind that stands out of time, that's not bound by any of the confusion that I or you or anyone in time wrestles with from time to time. It's so personal, and I'm so thrilled to share it with you. And for me, I'm thrilled for me. It's an important part of my journey to extend these ideas. And hopefully it's useful. It is to me. So today's lesson is lesson number 86. And it's done in an affirmation, acknowledgement style. So he goes on. Only God's plan for salvation will work. Only God's plan for salvation will work is the title. Only God's plan for salvation will work. It is senseless for me to search wildly about for salvation. It is senseless for me to search in all the many ways the world seems to offer for salvation, for happiness, for peace. It's senseless. I don't know about you, but I'm old enough and have done enough where I know that that's true. And yet I evidently need this reminder once again. And I'm willing to accept it, and I'm willing to extend it. It is senseless for me to search wildly about for salvation. Wildly. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that certainly is what I have done in my mind, panicking for connection, for solutions, denying that I panic, denying that I'm fervently trying to solve a problem that I perceive. But panic it has been. It is senseless for me to search wildly about for salvation. It is senseless. I have seen it in many people and in many things. I have seen salvation in many people and many things. In many people and many things. But when I reached for it, it was not there. Isn't that the truth? But when I reached for it, it was not there. Even if I was able to win in this world, it did not solve the problem. Even if my coffers were filled with money, it really did not solve the problem. I still was filled with grief. And I was doubly damned because I thought there was something wrong because I had solved the problem, and yet I still felt lost. I still felt separate. I still felt fearful. Same could be said for relationships. I love the moment that I fall in love, right? Someone once said, The moment you meet somebody, it's a holy relationship, and then it goes downhill from there. And I have found that that's true, or in a sense can be seen that way. And in any given moment, and it's true, I do see my brother and I am totally in love. And in that moment, it is a holy relationship. And then, then my plans turn it into something else. My plans turn it into something else. And I can't help myself, it would appear. So he goes on, I was mistaken about where it is. And that's true. I was mistaken where my happiness was. I was mistaken that I could solve the problem myself. I was mistaken about what it is. That's true. I will undertake no more idle seeking. I will undertake no more idle seeking. It's funny, he uses the word idle, I-D-L-E, of course. And then, of course, the other spelling is equally true. Idle, I-D-O-L. I will undertake no more idle seeking. Thank you. Only God's plan for salvation will work. 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 And I will rejoice because his plan can never fail. And indeed, there is a plan. Only God's plan for salvation will work. And I rejoice because his plan can never fail. So the lesson goes on and suggests a few forms. Should I be tempted today or in this moment to doubt this? He suggests this. God's plan for salvation will save me from my perception of this. God's plan for salvation will save me from my perception of the world. God's plan for salvation will save me from my perception of this problem, of this relationship, of this situation. He goes on, this is no exception in God's plan for my salvation. So there is nothing that God's plan for salvation cannot and will not heal, neutralize, transform, dismiss, whatever word you want to use. There is no exception in God's plan. This is no exception in God's plan for my salvation. My salvation. This is no exception. There is nothing that the light of the world in me cannot do. The light of the world in me heals all minds through my forgiveness. There is only God's plan for salvation will work. Let me perceive this only in the light of God's plan for salvation. So whatever it is, whatever comes up, whatever's in your mind, whatever relationship, let me perceive this only in the light of God's plan for salvation. Let me learn to perceive this only in the light of God's plan for salvation. Let me accept, go deeper with, surrender to the fact that only God's plan will work. Only God's plan will work. I am part of his plan. You are part of his plan. We are part of his plan. And only his plan will work. And it is where our happiness, where our joy, where our peace is. The second part of the lesson, Holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. How simple. Holding a grievance, no matter what it is actually an attack on my own salvation, on God's plan. It's a delay of allowing the peace of God to fill my mind. Any grievance is simply a delay, a defense against God. He goes on, holding grievances is an attempt to prove that God's plan for salvation will not work. Holding grievances is an attempt, my attempt, to prove that God's plan for salvation will not work. Everyone is innocent except for him. Everything I did was fine except for this. Yet, only his plan will work. Only his plan will work. By holding grievances, I am therefore excluding my only hope of salvation from my awareness. So by holding a grievance, I am therefore excluding my only hope of salvation. My only hope to know myself as I was created. My only hope to know God, to know my brother, to rest in trust, peace, to fulfill my heart's desire in blooming as the flower I was intended to in my awareness. I am therefore excluding my only hope if I hold a grievance. With that said, I would no longer defeat my own best interests in this insane way. I would accept God's plan for salvation and be happy. I would accept God's plan for salvation and be happy. He has some suggestions here, a few ways to apply this idea throughout the day. Recognizing that every decision is between a grievance and a miracle. Every single decision today is a decision between a grievance and a miracle, between forgetting and remembering, between hell and heaven, between confusion and peace. Every decision, every moment, right now. He has some ideas. I am choosing between misperception and salvation as I look on this. So as I look upon anything today, he's suggesting that I apply this idea or something like it. I am choosing between misperception and salvation as I look on this. If I see grounds for grievances in this, in him, in her, I will not see the grounds for my own salvation. If I justify a grievance in any way about anything, I lose sight of myself. I lose sight of any hope of knowing peace, and thus any hope of really extending peace, of being the blessing that I know you want to be, and certainly I know I want to be. He goes on, again referring it to anything in the day. This calls for salvation, not attack. Whatever it is, this calls for healing, not attack. This calls for forgiveness, not attack. This calls for blessing, not defense. This calls for salvation and not attack. It's so personal. This Course in Miracles is indeed a miracle in my life. It is indeed a miracle. And this computer is a miracle in my life that I can share this with you. And you are a miracle in my life. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Only God's plan for salvation will work. And holding grievances is an attack on God's plan for salvation. So I join with you today in the willingness to lay down our grievances and allow forgiveness to transform everything that we look upon and reveal to us the reality of what our brother is, of what the world is, and what we are, enabling us to rise up in the joy and the certainty that we were designed to be. Free to love, free to forgive. So, thank you again, and have a great, great day. I love you.